Quick warning before your next international flight. You can get fined without bringing anything illegal. One checkbox, one snack, one item you forgot was in your bag, and now you're losing money, losing time, or risking the trip. These are the travel mistakes that catch normal Americans every day, and I'm going to run through the ones that actually trigger fines and confiscations in 2025 and 2026, so you don't learn them the hard way. You can do everything right at the airport and still lose a painful amount of money because of one checkbox. It's the cash question. A lot of travelers think, my money is clean, so I'm fine. And that's where the trap lives. In a lot of places, carrying cash isn't automatically illegal. Skipping the declaration is what turns it into a problem. For Americans, this hits both ways, entering the US or leaving the US. If your total is over $10,000, you're required to report it. And total is the word people miss. Here's how normal people get wrecked by this. You count the bills in your wallet and you're like, cool, I'm under 10 grand. So when the officer asks, you answer no. The problem is you didn't count what still counts as money, even if it doesn't look like cash. Foreign currency, cashier's checks, money orders, traveler's checks, put it all together, and you can be over the line without realizing it. And once you've already said no, it stops looking like a simple mix-up. If they check and the true total is over the limit and it wasn't reported, that's when seizure becomes a real possibility, and civil penalties can follow. And zoom out for a second, this isn't rare or unique. Most countries use the same system with a clean number in their currency. A few common examples are up on screen. Quick test, 5 seconds. Add everything up. If it's over the line, report it. If you're not sure, report it. And in the US, that report is FinCEN Form 105. It's not paying a fee, you're writing down the real total you're traveling with. Last thing, don't do the last second split it up move. If it looks like you're trying to game the rule, you're asking for extra attention. All right, next up, souvenirs and gifts. It was only a small thing is the sentence that turns into a fine, and the item that gets people caught is often the one they're wearing. All right, next trap, stuff you bought overseas. People think, it's just a small gift. I'm not importing anything. So they hit no and keep it moving. But the sneakiest version of this isn't in your suitcase. It's on you. Say you bought a new watch abroad and you're wearing it through arrivals. You tell yourself, I'm wearing it, so it doesn't count. Then customs asks if you bought anything, you say no, and they notice it. What felt like a casual question can turn into secondary inspection, and now you're risking the worst combo, losing the item plus extra penalties on top. Here's the 10-second fix. Bought it abroad, put it on the form. Wearing it, still on the form. And keep the receipt easy to grab, because the fastest way to end this is showing the price without digging through your whole phone. Now, there's one more situation people forget. The watch isn't new. You've owned it for years, it just looks expensive. Before you fly, take a quick date-stamped photo of you wearing it. And if you're traveling out of the US with a high-value watch, do CBP Form 4457 before you leave. It's quick, it's free, and you can reuse it as long as it stays readable, so coming home doesn't turn into a debate about whether you bought it abroad. Now, there's a version of souvenirs that gets people in even deeper trouble: counterfeits. Because it's just for personal use is a theory a lot of customs officers don't care about. You wear a knockoff through arrivals and assume it's invisible. In places like France, customs can seize it, and the penalty can be based on the value of the real item, not what you paid, so your cheap deal can get treated like a luxury import. Safe move. Don't travel with anything you can't verify as legit. The airport is the worst place to test that theory. Next trap. Souvenirs made from animals or plants. This one gets people because the logic feels solid. It's being sold openly at a tourist market, so it must be fine. But for sale doesn't mean legal to bring home. A lot of wildlife and plant products are controlled under CITES, an international treaty that controls cross-border trade, So the same souvenir can be totally easy to buy and still illegal to import without the right permits. And it's not just the obvious stuff. It's the everyday tourist stuff. A little piece of coral you grabbed because it looked cool. An ivory look bracelet? That's basically sold as a joke. An exotic leather wallet where you have no idea what animal it came from. These are the items people don't clock as wildlife products until customs does. Rule of thumb, if you can't name the material or the species, don't buy it. And if you already bought it, declare it and let officers decide what it needs, because the airport is where souvenir turns into wildlife import. There was even a US case where a traveler ended up with a $50,000 penalty for bringing back carvings made from protected wildlife parts without the proper permits. That's why guessing is expensive. Next up, biosecurity. The mistake is simple. You land tired and you forget what's still in your bag. And that's how a half-eaten apple turns into a real fine. You know what gets people fined in Australia and New Zealand? Not dangerous stuff. Food. The good stuff. This is the classic move. You land, you're tired, you've got a half-eaten apple or a sandwich in your bag from the flight, and you think, it's basically trash. Nobody cares. Biosecurity cares. A lot. In New Zealand, this is strict. If you don't declare a risk item or you declare it wrong, you can get hit with an instant fine, even when it's an accident, even when you genuinely forgot. It's not a criminal conviction, but it is a real penalty, and it starts at 400 New Zealand dollars. And New Zealand has been moving toward a two-tier setup where high-risk items like fresh fruit and meat can cost more, like 800 New Zealand dollars, because those are exactly the things that can bring in pests and disease. Australia is the same idea, but the paperwork is the weapon, the incoming passenger card. If you tick no when the real answer is yes, that's treated as false or misleading information. Border Force can issue an infringement notice on the spot, and depending on the situation, you can face civil penalties or even prosecution if it's serious. And those on-the-spot fines aren't pocket change. They can run into the thousands of Australian dollars. So the rule is simple. Don't try to sneak snacks across biosecurity borders. If you've got food, declare it or toss it. Declaring is how you turn this into a 10-second inspection instead of a very expensive apple. And if you think the Apple thing is strict, Great Britain has one that blindsides people as of this year. You fly back from Europe, you grab a ham and cheese sandwich at duty-free, maybe a little cheese to bring home, and in your head, it's the most normal travel moment on Earth. Here's the problem. Right now, bringing meat and dairy into Great Britain from the EU can be restricted because of foot and mouth disease precautions. And duty-free doesn't magically make it okay. A sandwich is still a sandwich. Best case scenario, they take it and toss it. Worst case, if you don't declare it and they find it, serious cases can mean a fine up to £5,000. That's not oops money, that's I just paid rent for a sandwich money. So here's the clean play. Finish it before you land, or declare it, and expect that you may have to surrender it. The only expensive move is pretending it isn't there. Next one is the I forgot it was in there classic self-defense spray. Pepper spray, tear gas. People leave it in the same 3 bags over and over. The walking bag, the purse, or the sling. Then they grab that bag for the airport, and they assume the worst case is, oh, TSA will just throw it away. Not always. TSA can issue civil fines, real money, and some situations can even trigger a criminal referral, depending on what it is and how it's packaged. The mindset shift is simple. You see self-defense. TSA sees an irritant device in the cabin, so do a 10-second bag audit before you leave. Empty every pocket, check the hidden zipper compartments, and don't forget the tiny side pockets, because that's where this thing lives. Next trap, loose ammunition. This is how it happens in real life. You went to the range months ago, or a hunting trip, or you reused an old backpack. 1 or 2 rounds end up living in a side pocket like lint and you don't notice until you're at an international airport. And here's the part Americans don't expect. In some countries, a couple bullets can be treated way more seriously than you'd ever assume. There was a case reported where a woman from Florida was arrested at the Turks and Caicos airport over 2 rounds in her carry-on. It turned into a major legal problem. She was fined, got a suspended sentence, and had to stay on the island until the case played out. That's the point. You're not bringing a gun, but you're carrying something the local law treats like a weapons offense. So the move is simple. Don't recycle a bag that's ever been near ammo. Before any international trip, empty every pocket, check the weird hidden compartments, and do it twice, because the one time you don't is the time it's in there. Next one is for the I Love Gadgets travelers, satellite phones and drones. First, satellite phones. In some countries, it's not just a phone, it's regulated equipment, and you may need permission before you even arrive. There have been cases where travelers were detained at airports in India for bringing a satellite phone without the proper authorization. You're not trying to be a spy, but that's how that device can get treated. Second, drones. This is the bigger trap, because some countries don't just restrict flying, they restrict import. Egypt is the headline example. US travel guidance warns that bringing any drone into Egypt is illegal and can lead to confiscation, fines, and even jail. Quick check before you pack. Do a fast Google search on whether that country allows drones or satellite phones at all. If the results look messy, leave it at home. The airport is not where you want to learn your vacation tech is a security issue. Here's one people almost never think of as contraband, the data on your devices. Your phone, your laptop, your USB stick. You can walk through customs with 0 fake bags and 0 weird gadgets and still get stopped because of a file. Because in some places, that movie you downloaded for the flight isn't seen as harmless entertainment. It can look like bootleg content. And the other everyday trap is a random USB, like one you grabbed at a conference or got as a freebie, because it's a mystery item you can't explain quickly. So make this simple and practical. Travel with a clean device. If you don't need a file for the trip, don't bring it. Move personal stuff to cloud storage, delete sketchy downloads, and get rid of mystery USBs. For travel days, streaming beats storing. Because in 2026, it's not only what's in your bag that gets inspected, sometimes it's what's already sitting on your phone. You know that every airport has its own rules feeling? Someone commented that they did a Greece round trip and went through 6 airports. 5 of them were super chill. Security literally told them, you can leave your tablet in your bag. So they believed it. It became muscle memory. Then came the final layover, Newark. They're exhausted, running on airport snacks and regret, and they do the same thing they've done all week. Tablet stays in the backpack. The bag goes through the X-ray, and suddenly an officer shouts like they just found a classified document. We got a tablet. And now this poor person is getting waved back, pulling stuff out, rerunning the bag, doing the whole thing again, while everyone behind them stares like, seriously? That's the trap. You didn't bring anything illegal, you just carried a habit from the last airport into a different lane. A lot of lanes now have CT scanners, so they let you keep laptops and tablets inside, but the lane next to it, same terminal, same day, might still want everything out. So the survival rule is, don't follow your last airport's rules. Follow the signs in this line and listen to the staff in this line. Because a 10-second mistake is all it takes to become the person who makes the whole line wait. Here's the airport fine people don't believe until they see it. Sometimes the thing that upgrades your problem isn't what's in your bag, it's your attitude. Someone told a story about flying in the US for the first time after 9/11. Security took their nail clippers, just nail clippers. They got annoyed, looked up, and muttered a son of a kind of line. And right there, the whole vibe changed. They weren't the person who lost a tiny item anymore. They became the person with an attitude. And from there, it's extra questions, extra time, and that uncomfortable moment where you realize there's a police officer standing close enough to hear you breathe. They even said after that, they kept getting hit with extra screening, like the SSSS stamp showing up more often. That's the lesson. In an airport, your mouth can cost you more than your stuff. And it's not just embarrassment. In the US, the FAA can propose civil penalties up to $43,658 per violation for unruly passenger cases. And one incident can stack multiple violations. In Europe, airlines are done playing nice. Ryanair announced a minimum fine of €500 for disruptive passengers who get offloaded. And some places will fine behavior people treat like no big deal. Turkey brought in rules that allow fines for unbuckling, standing up, or opening bins before the plane is fully stopped. Reports put it up to about $70. So the survival rule is brutally simple. Don't argue, don't joke, don't curse, don't get sarcastic. You can win the moment and still lose the flight. Alright, next up is another one that feels harmless until you see how it's enforced, trying to bend the checkpoint process on purpose. Last one, and this is where people accidentally turn a small mistake into a bigger problem, trying to outsmart the checkpoint. Most travelers assume TSA only cares about what the item is. But TSA also cares about what you tried to do. Their own civil enforcement guidance has a separate category for attempting to circumvent screening, like artful concealment of a non-explosive liquid, aerosol, or gel. Translation: it doesn't have to be a weapon. It can be a normal bottle of skincare or hair product that's over the limit, and you tried to hide it in a pouch, a sock, a secret pocket, whatever. So if you realize you messed up, don't play games. Step out of line, toss it, or put it in checked luggage if you still can. Because I forgot is a lot easier to fix than I tried to sneak it. If you remember one theme from this whole video, make it this. Airports don't punish you for traveling, they punish you for guessing. Declare when you're unsure. Don't recycle old bags without checking every pocket. Don't try to game the process. And don't let a 5-second attitude moment turn into a 2-hour problem. Now I want to know your "I can't believe this happened" moment. What's the most ridiculous thing you've ever had flagged, confiscated, or questioned at an airport? Cash, food, a gadget, anything. Drop it in the comments in one sentence. And if you fly a lot, hit subscribe, because the rules keep changing, and I'll keep translating them into what actually matters when you're standing in line.